Hey everybody, Chris DeLeon here of GameKeto. I want to begin by thanking everyone who's been a huge part of helping our Patreon get off to a great start. Holy smokes, oh my gosh, it's great! We actually now have a lot of sponsored membership roles for the club. If you're interested in applying, or if someone you know is, for personalized mentorship with game development, worldwide practice projects with teams and support, have an application link down below. You can just share that link with whoever you'd like to. You can apply yourself. If you'd like to be a part of our club and otherwise the dues wouldn't be in your means, thanks to the generosity of sponsors on Patreon, we now have that as an option. Now, the message for today actually has to do with, I recently put out a question, as I do a few times a year, this question about if you haven't been making games but you want to make games, what's stopping you? Like, what do you perceive as your barrier between you and making games? And this is not to call out anybody in particular, it's not about any particular person's situation, because there's patterns that arise from this. Every time I ask this question, the patterns I see are things like, I can't make games because I'm in college. I can't make games because I have a full-time day job. I can't make games because I have kids. I can't make games because whatever it is, it's these things that, here's the deal. And again, this is not to call anybody out. It's not to get anybody's back. This is to identify that there's something about how we're thinking about the question, or something about how we picture what's involved in making games that's preventing us from doing the things we want to do. Because I actually know a lot of people who are in college and making games, not even as a part of their classwork, just doing it on the side. People who have full-time jobs that are making games on the side, not as a part of their job, just their own projects. People who have kids and families and are still making games. And again, just their own thing to do in the same way as people have different outlets in our lives. Now, part of what I think sometimes holds us up is this thinking that the only way to make games is either A, at a scale, which is beyond our individual means or the kind of team access and time commitment we can put towards it anyway. And that would be like saying I can't skate because I can't, like, skate in the Olympics at a highly competitive level. You can still do these things if it's something you're interested in doing. It doesn't necessarily have to be in that format or that location or that scale to be enjoyable and enriching and totally worth doing. The other thing that I think winds up happening, though, is there's this impression that the only way these things get done is if someone has a huge blob of just time, where there's nothing else asked of them, no other obligations. And the reality is, I know some people who I know people who have that situation, and they actually struggle to get things done in part because unstructured time is really, really, really hard to work with. Having other things in our lives, job commitments, family commitments, school commitments, can actually help push us to get more out of the time that we have because our time has a high value to us, because there's other things competing for it. And so it allows us, in many cases, to actually squeeze more result, more productivity, more progress, more learning out of even just a 1 or 2 hour here or there per week or so that we can fit in. Now, there's a story I like to share, so I've shared it before, I'm going to share it again, just like the Burden's donkey thing. It comes up again because it's so important to kind of keep finding ways to get this message out there. But back when I was touring schools, now over a decade, almost a decade and a half ago, one of the schools that I visited to tour, didn't get in, but visited, Harvard, they had a lot of student athletes, including our tour guides. And so one of the parents concerned about, their students' grades and things says, how does the sports season affect your grades? And the tour guide offers, anecdotally, but I think you'll see, still applies, said that they and their friends, actually, their grades tend to be much better in season than out of season. Okay, does this make sense? So for the part of the school year when they have, whether it's rowing or football or basketball or soccer or whatever it is that they're playing, right? When they're playing that sport, their grades are better than when they're off season. And they explained it pretty simply, right? I mean, it's that it gives their life structure. It gives them, they have to be a little more regimented and disciplined in their habits. It means that they have a mentality of not just staying out late or losing track of time or just time being soft, because they're scheduling things around when they have actual things going on. Plus, and this is part of what I think is important, they didn't emphasize this part, this is what I think is so important to it, it's giving them an outlet for a thing that they enjoy and a thing that they're good at, and that can actually raise our energy levels in other areas of what we're doing. Does that make sense? That when you have an outlet, that if you really like playing lacrosse and it's lacrosse season, you're in a better mood all the time because you're getting to play lacrosse. I was a wrestler back in high school, and during wrestling season, like, that amplified for me my energy and happiness about other things going on in my life, because it was a thing that I felt some connection and some routine and some stability and some enjoyment out of. And so what I think often happens is when we find someone who they are in college, they do have a family, they do have a full-time job, any combination, pick 2 out of 3, pick all 3, whatever it might be, what often winds up happening is when they start finding a way to fit in game development. And again, we're talking small game development, we're talking personal projects, side projects, in some cases hobby scale, in some cases long-term, slow burn, build up towards possible commercial release, etc. When we look at these kind of cases, when they start to do that, they actually find that it's increasing their energy and their happiness in the other areas of their life. It's giving them more to give back. It's helping to keep them sort of with some focus on what their growth is coming from what their outlet is coming from, so they're not just getting lost in their duties and responsibilities to other things, which again are all legitimate and real, not trying to dismiss that those either don't exist or aren't priority. Those are still, by far in many cases, the highest priorities and should be. But, again, it can actually be in the service of them that we have some outlet for our things, that we find a way to make it fit, and that in fact the time is actually easier, counterintuitively, when you have to schedule it around your college classes and obligations and homework and test preparation, when you have to schedule it around your family or day job obligations and so on, it actually puts us more in the work mode of being focused and productive, thinking of study as a way of achieving our goals, of just having a routine in a way that a pure blob of time is actually incredibly hard to work with. So this is, again, not to get anyone's case, this is not to call anyone in particular, this is just to say that if you happen to be in one of those situations and you're thinking, you know, I just don't know that I can make games because X, Y, or Z is going on in my life, the 2 things I suggest are, 1, to think about, would you be happier, could you be happy, building, even at first, smaller, simpler games than the one you maybe have first in mind. And this is common advice anyway, right? Like whatever your main dream game is you're going for, you don't want that to be your first time building games. It's going to be polluted with beginner errors. Thinking smaller at first is often an easier stepping point, easier stepping stone. And the second part is that, again, if you can find a way to even just try, even an hour or 2 a week, a few hours, maybe on there for about a few hours, one time a week. Can you sneak it in a Sunday afternoon, sneak it in or wake up a little bit earlier on Saturday? Can you wake up earlier one day of the week, stay up later one night of the week, whatever it might be. And if you can do that, you can start finding it might actually both A, get more done in that time than you feel like and you think you might, B, that motivation, that reward, that outlet, that personal enrichment that comes from it can in many ways feed back in a positive way, amplifying benefits to the rest of your life in the same way as people who find a way to exercise, who find a way to take dojo classes for karate or learn to play an instrument or whatever it might be. And even who can fit those things in, it often helps enrich other things going on in their lives as well. So in that way, it can actually be in service of those other things as long as it's, again, kept priorities in check and all that. So anyway, that's the thought for today. Thank you for tuning in. I once again want to mention that if you be interested in being involved with the Game Keto Club, it's one of the ways that we find we're able to help make game development fit in more people's lives, different age ranges, different obligations and duties, jobs and so on, school and whatnot. The application is down below if you would need sponsorship to participate. And as always, though, if you're interested in participating and wouldn't need sponsorship, it's an open club in terms of anybody who can pay those dues. We have a registration page as well. I'll put a link down there. One of the other things I want to mention that's coming up soon probably is we might be having some guest videos where you've probably noticed every time I build up a platform audience, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on the podcast, whether it's on YouTube, whatever, is increasingly about how can I share this platform with more developers out there, get more views, more perspectives, more angles on it. This will not be a replacement of my own videos. I'll still be doing my own videos on YouTube, but I'm also starting to feel out, are there some other developers who would like to, for 5 or 10 minutes, do a guest talk or something on this channel, so stay tuned for those coming up soon. That's it for now. Thanks, everybody.